Welcome. Hello, we're now live. Hello, and welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly. My name is John Ostrus Ryan. You're very welcome. We changed the time, or we had the time initially so we wouldn't clash with it, like Vincent Brown and stuff like that. And then there were complaints that we were on too late, so we said we'd start around 10:45. The papers don't really come in until kind of 11. The Irish papers certainly, but and also we didn't know that Vincent was leaving, so we don't want to clash with. we're not in the clash business here. So we'd be probably watching Vincent if we weren't watching this ourselves, but and it's his last month. So anyway, we will on the night that he's leaving, we'll have, if it's a Thursday, we'll go on at 11:45 after the show. Anyway, you're very welcome. On the panel tonight, Johnny Keenan, Neil Curran, Olga Cronin, Laura Gaynor, and myself. Olga has been at the Charlton Tribunal all week and has been trying to make sense of it. So before we go to the papers, Olga, would you tell us about the week in Dublin Castle?
Yeah, for sure. I just put up the papers there now, just because we just got the Examiner. But
I'll finish that.
Yeah. So the tribunal it's been going on all week, and it started last week. But we've just heard from. So basically, this module is looking at TUSLA and the HSE and counselling. So it's just looking at this, how an allegation of inappropriate touching, which was made in 2006, and which the DPP directed that there be no charges made against Sergeant Maurice McCabe by the daughter of a guard who worked with Maurice McCabe.
Okay. Could I?
Sorry.
No, just to take you back. Sergeant McCabe was a sergeant in Ballybor.
Mm-hmm. He was sergeant in charge. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mr. D was Officer D, basically. He was a guard.
He was a sergeant too, yeah.
Yeah. And Sergeant McCabe made claims against Officer D of serious misbehaviours. We don't really know the full details. Actually, we do, but it hasn't up in the module or whatever anyway.
Yeah.
As a result, he's demoted. Officer D is demoted. And then his daughter makes
a complaint to the guards
about
Sergeant McCabe.
The extent of the complaint was that he had made a humping motion. There was no touching. There was no.
That's right, and they were both fully clothed, and it was during a game of hide and seek at Sergeant McCabe's house around Christmas.
Now the complaint.
In 1998, so it was a retrospective complaint. She was talking about something that she was saying had happened 8 years previous.
But she made the complaint in December 2006.
Yeah. And
the complaint about Officer D had been made at that time too, isn't it?
Prior to. Yeah, before it, yeah.
So the timeline is that she then comes, the daughter comes up with the complaint, renews the complaint.
In 2013, yeah.
Years later, 20 years later, and that was.
So she self-referred herself to Rian Counselling, which is like HSE counselling service, and so she met with a counsellor called Laura Brophy, and they had 2 counselling sessions. And the first session, she told her, so Misty told the counsellor, she repeated the same allegation, and the second meeting, she identified the alleged perpetrator. So she said it was she was claiming this was Maurice McCabe. So once that happened, Laura Brophy went about referring it to TUSLA, the Child and Family Agency, or the Child Protection Service at the time. And she made a phone referral, and then she made a written referral. The phone referral was correct in so much as it was about the 2006 complaint, but the written referral, she had added a wholly separate rape allegation that had nothing to do with McCabe.
Yeah.
Different woman, different man, everything. But it ended up in this written referral. But not only that, but together, if you just take the counsellor contacting Tusla, she actually didn't need to do that, in the sense that the 2006 allegation had already gone there. You know, it had been seen through the DPP, and he ordered that, or they ordered that there were no, if it constituted a crime at all, if what she was alleging happened. So
she didn't need to phone, and then to companion matters she wrote to them, but and when writing to them, it contained a completely separate rape allegation involving somebody entirely separate.
Yeah.
And then,
so that kind of, you know, the events then for the next couple of years, Maurice McCabe was never told about this allegation until the very, very end of 2015. In fact, he didn't get the letter of December 29th, January. And so what happened between 2013 and 2015, and, you know, those years were, if we all remember, quite turbulent for Maurice McCabe, in the sense that, you know, he was in the media, he had been whistleblowing and making trying to bring to light cases of malpractice. And anyway, we know all of that. So this is why this module is part of this bigger question as to whether there had been a smear campaign against Maurice McCabe, which has been alleged by the former Garda Press Office, Dave Taylor. So, but just to go back, so Laura Brophy, the counsellor, gave this to Tusla. Tusla opened a file on Maurice McCabe.
Okay.
Ciara McClone, she opened a file, and this is August 2013. She actually opened the file based on the phone referral, so it was correct, if you like. But so then this file sat in a cabinet of unallocated cases from August 2013 until the following May 2014. And basically what had happened there is that randomly in April 2014, the file was plucked out of this cabinet by a social worker called Laura Connolly, and she looked at the file, and Ciara McClone, in August 2013, before she put it in the cabinet, had left a comment saying duty to notify Gardaí, even though if the matter had been seen in the 2006 allegation, it should never have been notified to Gardaí, because it already had been, first of all. Also, and just, I don't want to confuse matters, but it's important to say that Ciara McClone had written a letter to the Superintendent Noel Cunningham just when this file, around the time when the file went into the cabinet in August 2013, and it was a private and confidential email to Superintendent Cunningham, and she sought a meeting with him to discuss all of this. Now, sorry, a letter or an email. Anyway, Superintendent Noel Cunningham never responded to this. Okay, so if we just park that for a second. But then in April 2014, Laura Connolly plucked out this McCabe's file randomly. She saw the duty to notify Gardaí comment, so she did. But then Laura Connolly wrote, so she made a Garda notification report, but she then, she created, like, she just basically amalgamated rather the 2006 allegation and the completely erroneous with why rape allegation. So she made it look like, I'm not saying she made it look like, but her action in the report, it looked like Sergeant McCabe had raped a girl during hide and seek, if you like. So if you think about it, the first error was like, there was just boxes with information and different names and everything which weren't spotted. But Laura Connolly amalgamated the two reports and sent this to the guards. So that set in train a whole other sequence of events, because Superintendent Leo McGinn, it was brought to his attention. He brought this to the attention of Mr. D, Miss D's father. Mr. D told Miss D, and Miss D then got in contact with Laura Brophy, the original counsellor, to say, what the hell, I never said this to you, basically.
Yeah.
So then Laura Brophy contacted Tusla to say that there was this, grievous error. And she made desperate attempts, it seems, to retrieve it from Tusla. Yeah, well, she wrote emails. She was trying very hard to contact Eileen Argue, who features in both around the 2006 time and the 2013 time. So there's several people who kind of cross over, and so she attempted to retrieve it. And there's kind of different things were going on, in the sense that she was told by Eileen Argue, or it was relayed to her that Eileen Argue had been on to the chief superintendent at the time, and that Eileen was saying that she wasn't sure whether the guards were going to give back the file, that they were going to keep the original file, but accept the amended file. Okay. So that's not being thrashed out now. It probably won't be until we speak to or we hear from the guards.
Okay.
So anyway, so at this stage, the error should be corrected, right? But unfortunately, and bear in mind, this error was made known to Jerry Lowry, who was the area duty manager. So he was aware of this.
Yeah.
And yet really kind of nothing happened per se. Maurice McCabe was still not notified.
Yeah.
And then in but May 2015, Kay McLaughlin came along and she was reviewing the files, and she found this file, and she contacted Jerry Lowry, and she was like, look, I think we need to do something about this. He hasn't been told of this, and it was unallocated and still hadn't been seen by the HSE or welfare officer. And so she then wrote what's called a bar letter. And a bar letter is like a letter that's sent to someone who's accused of something as a means to give them, like, to invite them to speak or respond to the allegation, which should have been sent to him years previously. But anyway, so, and I'm really sorry if I'm losing everyone, but so in May 2015, Kay McLaughlin, she wrote a draft of a bar letter, and she sent it to Jerry Lowry, the area manager. But he never opened this email. Sorry, he read the email, but he never opened the attachment. But if he had, he would have seen that Kay McLaughlin had repeated the rape allegation, even though the TUSLA had been told already that it was a mistake. So then that happened. So, but this is May 2015, right, that she wrote this letter, this draft letter that wasn't seen by Jerry Lowry. Anyway, that letter was sent in December 2015. And so obviously, Christmas, New Year's of 2016 was like set in train, legal letters back and forth. But in fact, like, so Sean Costello was representing Sergeant McCabe at the time, and they wrote two letters back. One was kind of a holding letter saying, like, we're going to get back to you properly in this in a few days. Then they sent this stinging letter saying that this is wholly untrue and everything, and can't believe that we haven't been made aware of this allegation for so many years. And they requested an urgent reply. They weren't replied to for another several months. They weren't replied to until June 2016. And then the whole matter was kind of kicked to this new sexual assault response team called SART, which was set up in August 2016. And actually there was a woman, Claire, forgive me now, I can't remember her second name, Tobin maybe. She was speaking today, and I can't remember now all of her testimony off the top of my head, but she was speaking about how horrified she was at how the case had been handled. So my point of I'm explaining about SART is because it kind of took it out of the and that's what Jerry Lowry, when he gave his evidence the last couple of days, he was kind of saying, look, we were overwhelmed, but I mean, it has to be said that all the people at all these different junctures have all admitted, look, we're really sorry, it was a complete mistake. They were all asked, did the Gardaí have any hand or part to play in the decisions that were made, and they all said no. So a lot of them, they can't recall phone calls, they can't recall certain meetings. So there's a lot of other stuff, but that's the bones of it anyway.
Right. Let's sort of go back to it later in the show. But I just want to on Monday, the woman is taking the stand or whatever. I mean, I don't know what it's real.
Yeah.
But it's in private session. The public aren't allowed in.
The public aren't allowed in, yeah. So it'll be Miss D, her father, Mr. D, and Mrs. D, her mother. And they're supposed to give evidence all day on Monday. And yes, Peter Charlton, the judge overseeing everything, he ruled today that the public wouldn't go. And essentially he was kind of saying that it's quite difficult to give evidence. And he was just kind of saying, given the circumstance of the situation, he wants to make this kind of as easy as possible. So I think submissions were made on behalf of like Irish Times, RTE and everyone, and I don't think they had any desire to identify her. So that's that. And then on Tuesday, just for people's knowledge, Paul Williams will be giving evidence, and another journalist, Debbie McGann, she works for the Mail on Sunday, she'll be giving evidence. Yeah. And Superintendent Noel Cunningham as I mentioned, he was given a letter at a key time when the file was first opened to McCabe, and we know he was given he was sent a private and confidential email which he didn't respond to. And during the week, it was said Charlton asked the solicitor for the guards why that didn't happen, and he said, well, he was on leave in June, and when he came back from leave in September, he opened it, and he acknowledges that he didn't respond, but that his father had died in October. And Peter Charlton basically said, well, we all have dead relatives. You know, he wasn't particularly appeased by that. So, but also it should be said that Superintendent Noel Cunningham has been named, and this is not to say anything about Noel Cunningham, but Superintendent Noel Cunningham has been named in the Dáil by Mick Wallace as one of two people, as one of two guards who had a meeting with McCabe in 2008 in Mullingar. And if any of you can remember, the O'Higgins Commission of Investigation, which looked into the allegations that Maurice McCabe was making about all different things, if you remember, we were told after the report came out by Mick Clifford, the Examiner, we were told that during that investigation, the counsel for Noreen O'Sullivan said to the judge, Kevin O'Higgins, we're going to prove, or it's our intention to prove that Colin Smith, I think, was the senior counsel, that Maurice McCabe was acting out of malice. And this was going to be based on a meeting in Mullingar. And now, it's only Mick Wallace and the Dáil who's named Noel Cunningham and Yvonne Martin as the people involved in that. Now, if you can recall, then Sergeant McCabe gave the judge a recording of the meeting, and because of that recording, that exonerated him. So, I think that's in terms of people who'll be giving evidence, I suppose a lot of people will be paying attention maybe to that next week.
Okay, and very so what will happen on Monday? Is that like a rerun of her counselling session?
Well, Peter Charlton was very clear in the sense that, his terms of reference are, extremely, this is in relation to an alleged smear campaign. He's not there he specifically said actually that he's not going to go through all the events of 2005, 6 and 7, which is the years that, this all kind of was related to. So, and he also said that, she's not to be identified. All the rest of photographers are not supposed to, or he ordered them to take a day off. The weather's going to be good on Monday. But he said that if it's a case that, in the process of all the evidence being given and people talking, if something is said that might identify them, he's going to rule it out for county reported. So, but yeah, it's not like he specifically, I think one of his term of reference is actually specifically that he's not to rerun these allegations, not to.
Yeah. Okay.
What's it like reporting on one of these things? Is it weird sitting in the court listening to all of it?
I wouldn't say weird. It's actually quite fascinating, Laura. It's quite a privilege, really, to be sitting there, to be honest, and to be listening to it all firsthand. So. I hear Charles. But it's quite a learning. It's quite an experience just to kind of. The similar responses, the kind of patterns of responses, that kind of emerge after being there for several days, and not to say that this, but. Do
you find any of it credible? Okay.
Look, I find it seems that there were so many. For me, it was a case. So far, it seems that protocols were maintained for child protection reasons or whatever they would say, but unfortunately the protocols that were followed kept the false allegation alive, and unfortunately the protocols that should have happened but didn't happen, that would have expunged it, didn't happen. And so that is really curious. They've all been very clear. Look, no guardian involved in their decision making, and you know what, there's so many of them, and they swapped jobs and changed jobs and moved around.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, but it's really worrying and troubling that, and that's the only way I can kind of sum it up in my head. Protocols kept it alive, and some protocols which could have expunged it didn't. So that's the.
So did you find that credible? what are the chances of it happening? Neil, I want to get into there straight into because you're related to a lot of guards, I understand.
Everyone I know is a guard.
You're in the forest next week. By accounts, Neil.
I have a guard a mug for my tea.
And just listening to Olga, I mean, I lost you, Olga.
Sorry.
Laura Brophy, I think. Within the first minute, I lost Johnny, Neil, do you find any of this credible? Do you think that Morris was stitched up here?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it very much looks like that. There's still a bit to go in the tribunal, obviously, but it very much looks like that. It's that's why I was going to ask Olga the same question, because you're wonderfully able to recite everything that's happened, but I'm eager to get your view on this, because you're sitting there, you're seeing their faces, seeing their expressions, seeing the different people taking the stand. And I know we're putting you on the spot with this, but really, what is your take? Because you can't take everything you're hearing at face
I find
value.
it incredible. I find it incredible that people have forgotten key moments, key phone calls, key meetings where decisions were made. I find it it's like it stretches credibility. So that I think that's all I can say, because I don't want to be unfair to anyone, obviously, least of all.
Is there anything you're hearing though? Is there anything you're hearing, Olga, though, that's getting your blood boiling, like that you're hearing that's really riling you up?
Well, the fact that the fact that Morris McCabe wasn't made aware, for so many years of these allegations that were swirling around at a time when all these other things were happening. Like Peter Charlton has obviously done, his research. Obviously, like to say he hasn't would be really unfair, but he has done his research in the sense that he's looked at the wider context, the wider timeline of events. Like in regards to Morris McCabe, like he referred to how Morris McCabe was kind of, almost to take the blame for a missing computer in the Garda station, which had been seized from a priest's house, who subsequently was jailed for abuse. So, like, there was stuff. There's other stuff going on. I think it's kind of mad what we've heard from Tusla and from the sequence of events. But I think we're really not going to get a picture until we hear from the guards and the journalists in regards to the smear campaign. Because
I think.
Do you see what I mean?
I do. Yeah. I think I don't know if Laura would agree with that. But the sequence of events looks like got the person who's made a complaint against his daughter then complains about McCabe. This sort of rumbles on. I mean, even to say it's conspiracy is sort of like it's a confederacy of something. Something's going on there that hugely dangerous. But I think in the defense of journalists, and I think they've presumably they got the story that that McCabe had raped somebody. So. If they're armed with that information, I never knew the animosity towards Morris McCabe. Remember, we used to talk about it. But is that the basis of it then?
But this is the thing, I guess. I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, I suppose that's what everyone is probably wondering.
Johnny.
Well, I lost Olga there as well, but that was more to do with the technical blip. No, Olga, you've been, as you say, John, we've been discussing this over a long period of time. In actual fact, if you look over the 22 weeks, the one Garda scandal after another has been at the forefront of our conversation. And so Olga has been well informed from the get-go in relation to what's going on. So I'm just sorry that you have to go through all that on these lovely hot summer's day, Olga, in the middle of Dublin Castle, inside, listening to this barrage of bullshit is the only thing I can call it. That's what I'm calling it. Because it's ongoing, and it comes back to if Morris McCabe didn't record that conversation, he'd be in very, very serious shit now. That's his only thing to go on by all accounts. And obviously, a listening judge now, and Charlton is a guy that has done his research. And by saying to someone there, we all have debts to deal with. He's not suffering any fools gladly on this one.
Yeah.
And so it's coming to the fore now that I'm not as informed as Olga, so I'm not going to have a major opinion about it, but I do see cover-ups. There's a stem of cover-ups all the way along the line. Maurice McCabe is a whistleblower, and we know what the Gardaí want to do with whistleblowers. The last guy thought it was disgusting. Vradker now has said it needs to be dealt with. And Vradker also is not getting off point, but still talking about the Gardaí, that they did foul the ball, so to speak, on the Jobstown case. Vradker basically said that the Gardaí on that case did lie. So if he's going to say something about this case, it's really across the board, John. In relation to what's going on. So what needs to happen with this current tribunal, or I don't know, is it a tribunal?
It's a tribunal.
What's the difference between a tribunal and an inquiry?
Well, there's no sort of like, you're not sworn.
I suppose 5 million.
It's not sworn testimony. Nothing you can see.
Okay. So will there be a size and end?
Sorry.
We're going to be looking at an end date on this, and is there going to be anyone accountable for like in a court of law? Can anyone actually go to jail on account of what has been done to Maurice McCabe?
No.
But it's a lot of bullshit. It's the same old shit then again, isn't it?
Well, it's Moriarty. Yeah, I mean, the DPP can then decide to prosecute, but they've been sitting on the Moriarty tribunal for many years. But like, the situation here it's so odd. You've got Vradker in the Doyle attacking Murphy for the Jobstown, not referring in any way to what he had said in the interview about the police, about the guards. And then you've got like a mile down the road, Dublin Castle, is this stuff coming out about the guards. It's sort of, one hand, the guards are great, and on the other hand, no confidence in Noreen, everybody's got to go,
Yeah, it's never, the elephant in the room is never addressed in this situation, but the two of them are very closely together. It's one scandal after another. Like, for example, what's happening with the Gardaí in relation to the Murphy, the Jobstown, they purged. It's at the stage now where Murphy has the bit between his teeth, and whether he's using it as a political football or not, that's probably the case. But the thing is,
well,
in a court of law,
I'm not going to dispute that, but I mean, let's see.
But Micheál Martin and Vradker are colluding together, and this is how cops have got away with shit down through the years. Fianna Gael and Fianna Fáil have said the cops are grand because the cops are the lapdogs for these establishment parties. So I guarantee you, if you go through the 12,000 Gardaí on the beat tonight in Ireland, very few of them are socialists or would tend to vote left. And this is the big picture now. The socialists are coming out and saying, listen, you colluded and you lied against us. Our peers in a court of law found us innocent. So, and the media have still conspired to discredit these people. So the gloves are off, John. It literally is left and right. And there's going to be almost, which side are you on, lads? Who do you represent? And that's the main question that the Gardaí have to answer. They got up and stood shoulder to shoulder when they were looking for a pay rise. So then say, who do we represent here, lads? The people or the establishment? And that is a very clear question that I'd be putting out to any Gardaí listening to this. Yeah. And also, fair play to you guys for doing your thing most of the time. Because they're still a reputable force. There's just a few bad apples in it. But they need to be sorted out.
Neil, all your relatives are great apples.
Every single one of them.
The funny thing is that I actually have a pretty good experience with the guards. Because
I have many good ones as well, Laura. Just to say that as well. Sorry.
Yeah, funny enough, I'm in the inner city, and we often see stuff, and we have to ring the guards, and I've always found that they come like that. And they'll always get back to you very quickly, and I've even for small things that they take it very seriously. But I'm still trying to wrap my head around this particular case. Yeah.
Well, it's I think they're all right till they turn against you, and there's Sergeant McCabe really had no. He's like Serpico. I mean, he had the whole force against him, really, in a sense, and then every file is missing and all that kind of nonsense. It's a miracle, actually, that we've got this so far. Really,
it is, and I have to say, every time, every day in there, my heart you know, every time I hear that the rape allegation, I'm just like, God, and he's there with his wife, and it's just, you know, it's just devastating that for years that was going around, you know.
Well, and John Wilson was there as well.
Yeah.
I think there's been attempts to smear them all. In fact, I know personally, actually, there was an attempt to smear Gemma. We know that under Gemma O'Doherty, the journalist, not in that area of accusation, but smearing, just
putting pressure as well, like, you know, in relation to Mary Boyle's sister. Wouldn't Gardaí go down and tell her, like, you know, to calm down in relation to the documentary that was being done?
Yeah.
You know, that was a softly approach. But who asked them? Who asked them to do that?
Well, I think the irony of the sorry, I don't want to dominate, but I think the irony of the accusations and the nature of the accusations against Sergeant McCabe and the rumours are a lot of the cases that we do here, Olga, isn't it? I mean, we get a lot of stuff that's from, you know, child sexual abuse that hasn't been properly investigated. A lot of it involving, you know, negligence by the guards and not following up and interviews and stuff like that. And I include sort of Cynthia Owen and obviously the murder of Mary Boyle, the disappearance of Mary Boyle. And it's funny how they've inverted everything, accused the good guy of all the
and they're all coming out now, John, because there's politicians in the Dáil that's taking this very seriously, and they're taking these cases on. So the people that do have a grievance and obviously aren't getting satisfaction from the Gardaí ombudsman are going to politicians, and politicians are raising it in the Dáil. So the more it's being raised, the more people are coming forward. So these aren't isolated incidents, you know. Where it's kind of stemming from in relation to the establishment and why they want the Gardaí to go after certain things in certain cases. But I just want to ask a question there, Olga, you might know. The DPP or Maurice McCabe's counsel is McDowell, right?
Yeah.
And he was formerly DPP, wasn't he?
No, he was formerly Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Yeah.
Okay, he was never part of the Department of Public Prosecution, no? No,
he's
okay, right, okay.
No. Can I just say as well there, like, sorry if I'm not being forthright in, you know, having an opinion, but it should be said as well that other guards are also going to be, it's not just about Sergeant McCabe. Like, there's other Garda whistleblowers, Keith Harrison, Nicky Keogh, and possibly more, who are going to be, you know, who are going to have their grievances aired in later modules. And so I think that the whole of it in its entirety, it'll become, you know, we'll have a better idea, you know.
How long is it expected to last, Olga?
I think it's until December, Johnny.
December.
Yeah, and like, it's clipping along. It's really, it's like every minute it's compelling, you know.
So is the TUSLA social worker phase, is that comes to an end? That's
this month, July, and then I think it's
But next week is the journalists, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know what? Then it's just Paul Williams and Debbie McGann, and then it goes back to some guards, and then it goes back to some more like some other TUSLA workers. So it could be because of their availability. I don't know.
Yeah,
let's see.
It's amazing.
It could be that no other journalists are going to come forward. We don't know yet. You know.
It's amazing.
Although obviously Philip Boucher-Hayes, Anne Harris, I presume Gemma O'Doherty, you know, they've all given statements. Controller Auditor General. These are people who've heard the smear. Well, the Controller Auditor General, Philip Boucher-Hayes, and who was the other person? They've said that, you know, Martin Callahan basically told them that Maurice McCabe abused kids. So, which he has denied.
Yeah. Sorry, Johnny, you were going to say something?
No, it kind of just comes back to me now. No wonder Callahan said it was disgusting whistleblowers.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, well, it's kind of it's hitting home now, really, isn't it? Kind of. Well, why they always want to be swept underneath the carpet in typical Irish style.
But it's a great defense for them, isn't it? Really. Well, I was told, I had it on good authority that I even a file existed. They could.
That's it. Yeah. See, I think even the fact that there was a file there, it didn't really matter. Even if it just sat there, you can obviously contaminate a person's character by just saying, well, there's a file with Tusla. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And which is probably why he was, or sorry, I'm not going to say it's probably why, but why wasn't he brought in charge? Why wasn't he questioned? Why wasn't he told of them? That is the question. That is what's so curious about the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, they'd so then they shop us around to journalists who would use it. I remember. Sorry, I don't want to keep on going on about this. We were saying something about.
Yeah, can I just say something there about apparently the what's her name, Noreen O'Sullivan and a few head Gardaí were answer questions by the communications clinic.
Noreen,
so how she denied it? Did she? Okay, no, is that right? Okay.
Well, at the committee.
But was there money handed over there in relation to 70 or 60 odd thousand for
I think it was 140,000, was it?
Yeah, and there was 4,000 to another PR company. But a
Car
lot of
communications,
yeah. So a lot of government funding, our money, is going to Terry Pro to basically tell the cards how to answer questions. I remember this happening a few years ago with Mary Harney or someone with Dobbo. RT were had to go to a certain workshop in order to ask politicians questions in a certain way. Do you remember that?
This is very common, Johnny.
Well, there's a lot. Is Terry Prohan the only PR guru?
No.
That can do this. She seems to be the Max Clifford of Ireland. No. I'm not making any other connections. But I was always wondering, who is this guy Max Clifford? Who is he that can keep the likes of Simon Cowell off the television and off the papers for any scandal? I said, is this guy actually God? And he was on Ryan Tuberty there, and he's going, Max Clifford, how do you do it? And look where Max Clifford ended up. Do you know what I mean? And that's, I'm absolutely making no connection there whatsoever. But why is all this happening? You can either answer the question or you can't. And this money being given to an actual business in order to teach public servants how to answer questions.
Yeah. But, I mean,
it's just mind.
But that's why Neil and I'm sure Laura would agree. That's why those Morning Ireland interviews are so uniform in their responses. Are so. It's like Jeffrey Boycott going out to.
Do they do them deliberately, really early in the morning? Kind of, if they get them at 5 in the morning, then they get that real subdued response. So I don't know. Go either way. They might get something really controversial, but they mightn't get anything controversial because it's like Zombie. Yes, Zombie does radio interview.
I wanted to talk about Leo and his pettiness in the Doyle yesterday. Not just the Murphy stuff. Probably written. It seems to have been written by Paul Williams. Almost his language, but Dr. Hearn and another academic in Maynooth has come up with a thing on housing, a large report on housing, and saying that these hubs won't work, and that here's the international examples of why they won't work. And all. Anyway, very comprehensive report. And Joan Collins, the TV, not the actress, in the Doyle yesterday, asked Leo about this. And without even addressing it, he went straight into for the jugular. He said, "Oh, I knew that guy back," talking about Hearn. "I knew him back in Trinity, and he was part of some left-wing group, and I was whatever." And
writing letters to the Irish Times.
And then I met him. It was like gossip. It was sort of gossipy kind of. And then I met him at a running thing. He wasn't really nice to me. He sort of had a go at me, and that was it.
But that's Leo's way, isn't it? He does that with everyone.
I just thought that might have been curbed when he became Taoiseach. You know, the office becomes you, or you become the office.
Well, it didn't happen with Donald Trump either, so hope it mightn't happen with Leo.
Well, you know, you're talking about 2 Time magazine front pagers there, Laura.
Yeah. Well, Enda was on the front of the magazine once as well, but
so was Bertie.
So was O.J. Simpson.
So yeah. So was Hitler.
So was Hitler, and Lance Armstrong, and they're all
It means nothing.
No, it means nothing.
Can they ever be held to account for being inappropriate in the doll? The politicians, like.
I think if you say "fuck you," you can, and then you can go off and make an album.
Fuck you, Deputy.
I think that's about
it. Deputy Stag, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Deputy Stag, yeah.
What's that? Was classic.
Paul something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Collins Green Party.
Gogarty, yeah. Gogarty.
Gogarty, yeah.
And Dan Boyle actually released a CD as well. With a columnist with us. I haven't heard. I have actually. It's a very good voice. They both got very beautiful, beautiful voices. Yeah, they're good, golden throated.
They didn't. If only they used them in the dome.
So yeah. So Leo is on the cover of Time, but it's the Time European edition. It's sort of a kind of Swiss. As somebody said, I think more people get Broadsheet than more people.
Well, you'll be on the next week, John.
Well, you know, as he's a dickhead or whatever, but it still puts us on the cover of Time magazine, you know, as a nation. And the same went for Enda, you know, love him or hate him, it still puts Ireland for a brief moment in the limelight again. The quote was a little bit facetious, but
what was the quote?
You know, we're a small island on the center of the world, something to that effect.
And he took that from the advertising. What's the campaign? Is that for a lager? Is it?
Probably. Who knows? Doesn't matter.
But isn't it?
Leave the line. Right.
Wait, was that from the ad where the guy walked through the terminal? Remember Terminal 2?
Oh yeah, that was yeah.
Did he play Price?
Wasn't there was a parody of it though, wasn't there? What's his name? Après match guy.
Barry Murphy.
Rich Starrett Cook or Barry Murphy. There it is. Okay.
Laura has the cover. Can you?
He's a handsome man.
That's Leo. That's our Leo.
He looks great. I have to say, the suit. It's kind of.
Is it time or is it to me?
Well, it's an interesting picture because it looks like he looks in a very uncomfortable pose because his hand looks like at a loose end.
Yeah.
I felt it was an odd picture.
It is, yeah. Well, he's looking. It's like somebody's been cut out of it next to him, like.
And his tie is very badly tied.
It's like a wedding photo, and it's the best man looking at one of the bridesmaids. Now they put out
and they just got that moment.
They've removed the bridesmaid.
At least the zipper is up anyway. It's good.
No, he sees two young ones from Bank of Ireland, and he's going over to ask them for a loan, or a kiss in the cheek, whichever. I don't know.
Well, you know, he's photogenic though. He's got the look for.
He's a neoliberal. That's why he's been called, and he's head of the neoliberals in Europe now. He's leading the way.
They all look at the Macron, Trudeau, and Leo. They all have that.
Yeah.
Careful now, if you give Trudeau too hard a time, you could have protesters with pitchforks under the age of 25 protesting at your door.
All right, yeah. Well, I'm sure that Leo has a huge following in that direction. Would he?
Who knows?
I mean, among women.
But can we just say in relation to the Canadian guy, is it?
Johnny, I was asking the women the question about the women. Johnny.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit slow there on the pickup.
I'll get.
Sorry, John, I didn't hear the question. What did you say? Sorry.
Is his appeal to women as strong as Trudeau's women?
I don't.
Is he regarded as an attractive proposition? I'm not as a proposition, not, but as like a figure. Is he a kind of a? Do you guys go weak?
I don't. But that's because I just don't really like his kind of. All that stuff in the leadership contest kind of annoyed me. So all the stuff with the social welfare, which we talked at length about, that
Laura,
kind of gave me the measure.
It's once you know that he kind of, I guess that he's gay. It's almost like you don't really think of. You kind of he's off the market, like
Yeah.
But he's a good bit older than me anyway, so like.
Yeah, he's such an Ireland, isn't he? I wonder, was there a conversation just in relation to Tudor? Like he was here last week, and then a Canadian firm bought Shell's shares in
Shell,
and gas in the Corrib. That was €1 billion. Was that talked about last week in any capacity? I wonder. Between Fradker and or was it a hint to that?
No, and I can't even say that we covered it.
Well, like but like this money is going into the pensions of the Canadians, people, and we're getting nothing. This is more of it again. You see, what I think an awful lot of the news is what's not being said.
Well,
so when they send out these press releases, and I'm not having to go with Broadsheet or I'm having to go with the established press. It's all right and give us the fucking news when the gay has bolted. Let's get something. Journalism needs to up its game. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because it's fairly backward now in this country.
Two things. I was going to ask Laura or anybody. Does anybody know the swimming on the East Coast? Are we allowed to swim in the water then?
Actually, that's a good question, John. Because like down by the Grand Canal docks, like this is, I don't know if this is related to your question at all, but as in people are allowed to stand up paddleboard, they're allowed to canoe, they're allowed to do water skiing and kind of water. I don't know what the term is when it's on like a sort of a skateboard. It's not waterboarding, but it's water on the board. But you're still not allowed to swim. As in, if kids go and swim in the Gardaí or the Gordie come down and to get them out of the water. But, I said it, but they allow people to canoe, so I don't really get it. Like,
no,
it's safe to drink though.
It seems to be strange kind of classes.
So there was sewage out there. That's where sewage was put out. That's why it wasn't. No.
Well, I was worried. I'm worried about the big incinerator in Quebec. We've had a lot of people write it. Well, not a lot of people, but a number of people write and say about the smell down there and plasticky smell. And I know that there were people injured. I don't know what the latest is with that. But
the EPA stepped in there, didn't they?
There
was something with the EPA slapped the knuckles of either the government or the people running the incinerator.
Yeah. I just don't know. I don't realize how it could be possible for them not to pollute. I mean, this is all our waste going into this.
Yeah.
And then they're swimming about 100 meters, like a kilometer down the coast.
Personally, I've never been in swimming in the east of Ireland, and I don't actually plan to do it in the near future.
It's wild. I mean, it's not as wild as the Wild Atlantic Way, but it's. But I've always felt, and also I don't know if you've ever swam in the size of the jellyfish. I mean,
yeah.
These are mutants. They're from Chernobyl, Windscale, or that Sellafield. I mean, I don't want to swim with these guys.
Well, there was a thing up around Dundalk in relation to Sellafield,
Yeah.
On a summer's day, the breeze was coming across. And they were making connections there that there was a wind that was coming from Sellafield that was affecting people in the Dundalk region, not specifically Dundalk, but somewhere in Louth. There was petitions sent and everything.
Johnny, I just wanted to know, there was No, actually, no, Laura, I want to mention the poll you did with the bins.
Yeah. And that's actually, that's continuing, because that directly, if I did a poll, for anyone who's just watching this now, I did a poll last week for people who live in the inner city. Your only choice really for public bin disposal is to use actual plastic bags, tagged plastic bags from a company, and you put them out on the street. There's no communal bin that you can throw it into, and you can't put it in a wheelie bin, so you have to put the actual bags onto the street. But the thing about it is that these bags are, in my opinion, very poor quality. They rip very easily. Your choice is to either store it in the kitchen or else put it outside, neither of which are desirable, because you put it outside, you risk it being pecked open, for instance. I put out a poll on Twitter last week that was retweeted by Broadsheet, which is, if you leave out your rubbish in the bag, in the tag bag on the step, and it is pecked open, whose responsibility is it? Is it yours because you put it out? Is it Key Waste or whoever is the bin company, because they take responsibility for the rubbish and they set up a situation which causes this to happen? Or is it Dublin City Council, who generally don't claim to take responsibility for rubbish because they're contracting it out? It was a close enough poll, I'll be honest. The majority was that the responsibility falls on the service user. I personally still don't believe that. I kind of wish, as in obviously there's not the space on Twitter to explain the situation, that you have no other choice but to leave the stuff out. Last night I put out 2 bin bags just onto our front step, not onto the street. And I came out this morning, opened up the front door at 7 a.m. They were everywhere. It was really disgusting, and also a bit embarrassing in a way to have all of your rubbish just all over the streets, like, and it's everyone's problem now. So I rang up, like, and they
You just left it there, did you?
No, we did. I'll tell you what we did. I rang up the company, and I couldn't really get talking to anyone senior. Just as a kind of a temporary measure, I was lucky enough that one of my housemates helped me. Like, I had to put on full-on plastic gloves if I could find them. I had to stick these on and actually pick up all of the stuff and put it into a new tagged bin bag. And these tagged bin bags cost around €3 each. So, like, I just find the situation quite annoying, because the bin bags are expensive enough in the first place, and also the fact that you can't have a wheelie bin.
Can you get, Laura? Because we use them as well, those bags, but we don't put them out until like the night or whatever. But could you use like those? Not that this is the solution to the problem, but temporary, like those old school tin bins.
You see, they don't. They just won't. I've never tried it. I will say that I've never tried it, but they ask for the actual bin bags, and some of these ones are see-through, which make them probably.
But could you put the bin bag in the tin bin, and they just take it from the tin bin?
It's a good point. I don't know is the answer. I'd probably have to contact, but I've never seen anyone in our street or kind of in the general city centre area. I've not seen anyone else using tin bins. So either means that they haven't thought of it yet, or else that it's not allowed.
Yeah, possibly allowed.
Well,
what I would love to see happen, number one, I would really like to get my money back on the extra bin bags. Like, but really, is in most countries, there's big bins on the street, and you can just chuck your rubbish onto that. That's what I would like to see, or wheelie bins,
Yeah, like a huge big bin bag that everybody put their stuff in. Is that a thing?
Well, as
like
in a lot of European countries, there are just big, huge, giant bins on the street that can hold a huge amount of bin bags. Like, even Greece has this, and Greece has a terrible waste management system. Well, like, it's not too bad, but it's not the best. But even they have this system where they have the big things on the streets that are kind of collected en masse, and it just means that the waste is all in one place rather than in your kitchen or on your doorstep, basically. But it's a seemingly small thing, but it actually most people, if you've never had to think about how your rubbish is collected, you know, you don't really realize it until it becomes a difficulty.
Yeah, and Neil, privatization, eh?
Yeah, if I get the guards to do it.
They might lose some weight. I mean, I don't want to be getting.
Guards and waste disposal. Now there's the idea.
Well, you know, this is in the news. Us suburbanites with our contracts with Panda Waste are in the news because they're contacting customers to say they're changing the contract. And one of the terms of the contract was the right for them to gain access to your property to inspect your bins. So they're giving themselves more power than the guards have. And this kind of thing of when you cancel the contract, there's a €30 bin cleaning fee, even though they clean it for you in contract for a £5. All this kind of oh yeah, and like the whole thing with the biscuits. I can't remember what the quote was from the paper, but biscuits in the wrong bin and you get slapped with a fine. But who was it today? I don't want to name the wrong company, but one of the other waste companies was in the paper today.
Greyhound.
Say again? Greyhound, yeah. So,
I really wish that they never privatized the bin companies, because you ring up now, as in like now when you ring up public bodies, they'll refer you on off to them, you know, off to the bin companies. And when I rang up the bin company today, the only way I was able to get through to a human being was to click the option, which was if you're a retailer looking to sell our bin bags. That was the only. It just is. It's very profit driven, you know, but it is a public service. This isn't something. I think that if it's a service that you can't do without, then it should be public in a sense, you know.
Well, it was 2000. Was it 2000 when Joe Higgins went to prison for?
I'm just going to close this 1 second.
Yeah, it was. It was around the turn of the century, but the Dublin City Council voted 3 times against it.
But this is what Higgins was protesting about, and his cohorts. This would be privatized, and it'll become just so outrageous. And now what they're saying is, well, it'll level out. You know, they'll have to come down on their prices, because if the cheapest and the competitive will get the customers. So it's a buyer's market, but at the same time, it just has to be pointed out, I think, that Joe Higgins knew what he was protesting about. He wasn't protesting for the sake of protesting. And with everything, with all these public amenities that we should be getting, that we do pay taxes for, and that they should privatise, the brown envelopes are still going on, you know. Yeah. So nothing's changed really. It's just we've almost become desensitized to it.
Well, I think
it's literally rubbish.
Yeah, what you see with the water, if people can hold the line on the water thing, in like 10, 15 years, Bradford is going to be thanking people like Paul Murphy, because water is going to be, as we know, it's going to be the new oil, or is the new oil, and we have plenty of it, and it's ours. You know, it's not theirs. It's not Greyhound or Panda or whatever wild creature.
Yeah. I could handle greyhounds as the dogs. Then when they became buses, I was all right with that. But they were taking over the rubbish. They just monopolised everything. So there'll be mobile homes called Greyhound next.
Well, next week we're doing a special on housing and trying to get a flat and trying to rent a flat and all that. And, getting a flat. Wanting a flat, being miserable when you get the, and shares and stuff like that. Stuff we kind of.
Rory Ahern, when you get him on?
Well, hopefully, yeah. And we have kind of a forensic accountant who's worked in repossessions and stuff like that, and just to help anybody who's looking for a house, who's going to lose their house, or looking for even a bed. So that's next Thursday.
Are you going to do your Decent Daft's website, John? You mentioned that last week.
Yeah, well, we can discuss that again. Actually, I was going to get in touch with you about that, Laura. So,
and you know, they always make an example. Sorry, I'm cutting in here all night. A big pardon. I'm just very excited. But someone like Marcel from in relation to, you know, the way we always give the example of what happens in Europe and statistics. So if Marcel was on next week and he could talk about, because I know in Berlin and Paris and Amsterdam and Barcelona, there's a lot more rights in relation to student, or not student, basically renting rights in Europe. So we don't hear enough about that. And all those models could be taken on board for our new housing minister. Haven't heard much of him lately, actually.
Owen. Well, we talk. Owen Murphy. Is it Owen?
Oh, Murphy, yeah.
We can talk about all this next week. It sounds kind of boring, but it could be interesting.
No, you're right, John. It's the most important thing to be talked about, I think, at the moment. Definitely.
Okay. Thank you so much. I just want to thank all the Broadsheet commenters and readers and anybody in the live chat.
They noticed you got a haircut, John.
Yeah, it was a sequel to a haircut I got last week.
There's a few people that were asking for Jinx. Jinx.
Jinx.
Oh, yeah. Jinx.
Say hello, Jinx.
Oh.
Jinx.
Okay.
That's Freddie's favorite contributor, Jinx. Come on, bro.
On that bombshell, thank you very much for joining us.
No, good. Job done. You get the commission. You get the. There you go. He's the best dog in the world.
Thank you so much, Jinx. Johnny Keenan, Neil Curran, thanks a lot tonight. Olga Cronin, thanks for everything from the Charlton Tribunal and everything else. Laura Gaina, hope to see you all next week and for our housing special. So thank you very much. Awkward silence. Never awkward.